Hey, you kids, get off my lawn. Unless you're mowing it, let's see your mobile phone for initiative. Do as I say. What's up, a frowny face? Go out and play. Just like your parents did. Just like your parents did. As if your parents did.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to First Gen Gamers. I am co-host number 1, Jed. Co-host number 2 is absent. Ashley is not available to join the show today due to some personal conflicts, but she will be back on the next episode. Hope everything goes well, Ashley. But in the meantime, we already had our very first guest booked for this show. And he's a special guest. He is someone that I've known for a while. I've been on one of his podcasts, the former Super Mega Crash Bros Turbo, which is now Super Mega Crash Beyond, which he hosts with Lacey Finley. You're also the co-host of, the co-host of Horror Ramblings, inspired by a Weeabo. Is there anything else?
That would be it. I mean, with the occasional drop-ins to Podcasters Assemble, but that would be the majority of it. Yes.
And you're the designer of our show's logo, which we are forever grateful for. Stephen White.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited to be here and kind of get into your world for a little bit and see how it works.
Yeah, this is a long time coming. I was on your show back in my previous podcast, the Gamer Parent Strategy Guide, and the payback is come due, and I'm happy to have it. I'm happy to have you on to do it. Do you want to tell listeners anything about the shows that you host?
Yeah, as far as, let's start with Horror Rambling, since it's, I guess, on the straight and narrow for the 3 seasons it's been out. It's essentially myself and my co-host, Lester Blosser, just rambling about horror-related stuff. We do a little news recap if there's anything worth talking about, and then whatever horror movie has tickled our fancy that week. Sometimes it could be something that's very recent, which, if we can get in on the recent stuff. I like that, but sometimes it's just not feasible. Just talking about anything horror related, I'm excited for. There's a lot of good stuff coming up that we're talking about. So if you're into horror, that's a good place to start. And then with Super Mega Crash Beyond, we first did start talking about on the original show, as Jed kind of mentioned, Super Mega Crash Brothers Turbo. We were a video game podcast. That was our theme. We would talk about any and everything video game related, do news related recaps, and then usually it would be some big headliner, whether it would be video game history or some video game review, something like that. Sometimes we even had interviews, such as like when Jed came on, we talked about his podcast that he was doing at the time. But then we just wanted to expand because the video game, everybody can talk about video games, but we were kind of getting to a point where it's like, we kind of wanted to do something different because I felt like we had tapped into everything that we were going to do. And I was itching to talk about other things. So we decided we would just kind of end that chapter and then kick off a new chapter. And for the most part, I feel like it's been a fun experiment. And I would say experiment because it has been trying to find what works and what doesn't. I notice some topics that we talk about seem to garner more attention than others. And I haven't quite figured out what it is. I cannot for the life of me, do not understand the internet audience in this world, because we've been building an audience for the podcast on YouTube of all places. Like for Horror Ramblings, it had spiked here like in the last few months. Suddenly we're just getting so much traffic, and I'm just like, where is this audience coming from? And now I'm starting to see it for Super Mega Crash Beyond. I don't understand it. I don't know what we're doing different. So
you dare question the YouTube algorithm?
I guess so. I'm a curious person. who just wants answers. And yeah, that was just one that I don't understand. But if people are listening, fine. I don't care. It's just
Yeah.
I'm trying to get to a point where I'm not thinking about who I'm doing this for, or I'm not trying to do it for anybody but myself. Especially with the animation stuff, because one of the last episodes that we released as a few weeks ago, depending on whenever this comes out, I put in a little extra effort and I did some animations of our characters talking, and I thought this would be fun. And I got so close to being done to where I wanted, that when the episode was ready to come out, I was not done with it, and I was like, "Son of a bitch! I gotta shift things around." And then I had another one that we had upcoming that I was going to do it for, and I said, "You know what? Fuck it! I don't care anymore." I mean, I just putting in that effort. It's nothing personal. It's just if no one's really going to care, yeah.
Yeah, well, we're not doing this for a living. We're not, Chris Jericho or Joe Rogan or something like that. We're guys in our houses having fun, and yeah.
So
this is supposed to be fun,
right? And I started feeling like there was a pressure, and I was like, I don't need that pressure. I don't need it. So the episode will just go. It'll be fine because it's a podcast. It'll be fine,
right?
So, but no, yeah, Super Mega Crash Beyond, getting back on track. I got way off course. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, it's essentially just a show where we get to bullshit about whatever. Like, that was the conceit. It's just like, whatever we want to talk about. Do we want to talk about a TV show? Let's talk about a TV show. Talk about a movie? Let's talk about a movie. Music? What's happening in the day? One of my favorite things that we're doing now is we did an Am I the Asshole on Reddit. Like, Lace came up with that concept, and then I told her, here's a little sneak peek so you guys can get excited for something upcoming. We're doing holiday themed Am I the Asshole? So for Thanksgiving, that's going to be fun. And what was fun about the whole thing is when you listen to the episode, you're going to hear how I guess I took it personally. There's at least one story in that whole thing. I heard how irate and mad I got about it, because how dare these people talk to this woman this way? How dare they? I had no skin in the game, but boy, you'd think I did. So those are a lot of fun, because it just kind of gives you a little peek and makes you kind of see how you would respond in those situations. We would like to think we would be these good people, but we could also be shit human beings just the same.
Yeah.
So, but no,
I had to stop reading Am I the Asshole for that reason. Like, I would sit there and I'd get furious of like, how dare this moron? And like, wait a minute, I don't know these people. For all I know, this story's made up. I have to back away and not be this invested.
But it's so fun though. So I hope that people will like that upcoming, and a few other episodes we got upcoming, or just go back through the back catalog, check them out. And again, if you want to see video versions, I hate doing this because I get nothing out of it, but I have to say exclusively on Spotify because, again, YouTube likes to be very touchy about what's on their platform. So, exclusively on Spotify, I have to say, because that's the only place you're going to find it.
All right. Well, speaking of video games, that's what we're here to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about video game history. And today's topic, because this is going to be coming out on Halloween, so happy Halloween, listeners.
Mm-hmm.
We're theming it up, scariest characters. Now, I don't know about you, it's pretty typical that when Ash and I do the show, we kind of judge things unless the topic is so dead on specific that there is no room for interpretation. Something like scariest characters, there's a lot of room about what makes something scary. So I think the answers on here, I know my answers. There's definitely some interesting ones on here.
Sure.
Some And I imagine you're probably the same. So with that being said, let's get started with the second generation. The Atari consoles, the Intellivision, the ColecoVision, the Vectrex, if you're particularly obscure. What do you have for your pick, a scariest character of that generation?
This was very difficult for me. And I would honestly say that for a certain generation, up to a certain point, I felt like this was a little difficult trying to think of something that would be scary because I honestly, the Atari generation was like, I have vague memories of some of these games, and trying to think of something that was terrifying really was difficult. But again, I've seen videos, I've seen what Halloween looked like on Atari, if that's what you want to call it. Or, I mean, Nightmare Fuel would be something like Custer's Revenge if you want to get specific on some horror show.
Yeah, that's
Look it up,
scary for
kids.
more like of a war crimes way.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, outside of just some bizarre, odd pixel graphics that they had, I mean, I couldn't really come up with any for that generation because I guess they just weren't too fresh in my head.
So interestingly, when we came up with this topic, this was the first generation where I knew the character right off the bat. So,
all right,
which is interesting because there's so many more horror related characters and scary characters in, say the last 3 or 4 generations than there is in Atari, like you said. But the minute, like, I knew exactly who. Evil Otto from Berserk.
Okay.
The little bouncing yellow face. He comes in. If you spend too long in the maze shooting the robots, he starts bouncing in. He can go through the walls. He's invincible. He looks just like a smiley face, but as he's bouncing along, you hear that horribly inhuman digitized voice saying, "Kill the humanoid. The humanoid must not escape." And if you manage to leave the maze without killing all the robots, chicken, fight like a robot. When I was 4, that little bouncing smiley face just scared the living shit out of me. Like, I did not want to have to deal with him. So, yeah, like I said, that we decided the topic, and the reason it came to mind is Atari 50, the Atari, the 50th anniversary Atari compilation. They just came out with DLC like a month ago. Berserk was one of the games that came in it.
Nice.
So I was like, yes, finally. I fucking love Berserk. So that game has just been fresh in mind. So,
okay.
But yeah, that's what made the dominoes fall on that one.
I can definitely see that. Okay. Good pull.
All right. Next generation, the third generation, NES, Sega Master System, Atari 7800. What do you have?
I got a lot. This was one I could relate to.
Strangely, this is one that I had a lot of trouble with. So I'm interested to hear because I know my pick is going to suck.
Okay. So I picked out because I had a hard time trying to nail down where I wanted to go with this because some I could feel are more genuine. Some might seem a little ridiculous. Like, why would that freak you out? But it makes sense in my head. Trust me. So the one that would be the obvious choice would be something like Shadowgate, which if you've never played it, it's a point and click for, I don't know what your audience is. Hopefully they're about our age. It's a point and click type NES game. Kind of tedious on the point and click thing if you know an NES game. But there were just always how you would die and how they would describe it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Would just kind of just not set right with you when you'd read it. So it would just be like, okay, that's weird. So that was always a feeling about the game itself. Not really a character per se, but a character or the game itself would just make me uncomfortable for the text. Abadox is the same way. That was a weird fucking game. that we did feature in a Super Mega Crash Adventures episode. If you want to go look that up. Weird game. I don't even know what to say. I think since it was on the way out as NES was dying, they were just like, screw it, doesn't matter. Just let it go through. Like standards and practices, didn't even give it any, pay it any mind. Then we have Maniac Mansion. Here's where it gets a little like this muddy water thing, okay? I wasn't terrified of the game itself or the characters, but the music, for whatever reason, made me uncomfortable with the Edisons. Like it just had this eerie vibe. Listening to it now has a very 50s eerie vibe, like that kind of sci-fi, ooh, but it's also tongue in cheek. But at the time, I don't know, it set, every time the music came up, I knew they were danger. They were going to end my game, so I can't let them catch me. Oh my God, can't let that. So I think it was like a trigger response. When I heard it, was like, nope, bad guys, got to go away. So I think that's what maybe triggered that. I'm kind of thinking about it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But in the same vein, there was another game called Vegas Dreams. I don't know if you remember this. All it was like playing Vegas games, poker, Keno.
I vaguely remember it.
And for whatever reason, I think that what kind of intrigued it with me and my brother, the reason we played it so much is because they would do these story things. So you were these, hot shots. You were going to town. You're going to be betting on everything. And you could pick your games, play whatever games. But then as you played your games, people would interrupt your game and be like, hey, excuse me, maybe I could interest you in something. Or maybe we could talk about this. Investments with your money, or maybe a woman wants to buy you a drink or whatever it may be. So there's more than just playing poker games or whatever games that you play in Vegas. But that was kind of the end, was the story stuff. But there was anytime something bad happened, they would cut to this news story, and it would always be this very serious, very dramatic music. And this guy's just telling the entire world, or at least in Vegas, that you got ripped off, and you just felt terrible. Along with this, you got ripped off by this woman who just, that's her deal. And you're one of the stupid people who fucking fell into her traps. And you hear this terrible music while they're talking about you being the fool. And it's just, I don't know, that also just scarred me, because I don't want to hear that shit. I don't want to be on the news hearing a story where I got ripped off.
It's amazing the things that like stick with us or affect us as kids like that.
Right? I don't understand it. I don't know why that was such a fear, but it was.
I had a memory like that, not related to video games, but it was triggered today. I was watching something on TV, and the Downy commercials, how the bottle kind of falls off from off camera and it hits the sheet where it hits the bed and it kind of bounces a little. For some reason, when I was like 3 or 4 years old, that scared the living shit out of me. And I can't explain why. All I know is that bottle hitting the bed and bouncing just made my skin crawl. And that memory just unlocked today. I was like, oh, shit. That's so weird. That was 40 years ago. But yeah. The
bizarre
weirdest
shit
things
that our brains do. Yeah.
My pick for this generation, like I said, is kind of lame. It's kind of obvious.
Okay.
It's Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th.
But there's terror in that.
The reason being, okay, so it's not the design, because Jason is cosplaying as the Grimace and he's wearing a fucking baby blue hockey mask. So it ain't his looks, but it is the gameplay mechanic. It is the only game that I can think of where there's really only the one boss. He's the final boss. He can hit you. He can come out of the blue at any time. He can just, you're walking along the forest path. He can all of a sudden show up and just start hucking axes at you. He can be in a cabin, and you know that he's in the cabin because you can see the strength bar on the heads up display, but you don't know where he is in the cabin because the game doesn't have that kind of draw distance. So you're looking around and you turn, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's Jason. And suddenly he's punching you like Mike Tyson's Punch Out. It's the surprise factor of no matter where you are in the game, you're not safe.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah.
Not that it's a great game. I mean, I will defend defend it from some of the criticism. I can't say it's a 4-star game though. Not that crazy.
Yeah. It's a hard one to defend. Like, I can't even think of a thing to defend about. There's some no, I got nothing.
Okay, let's move on to the next generation, the 16-bit era. What do you have?
Well, this one was a little difficult for some reason. Like, I was honestly trying to think of some, and I honestly think that if I had access to a Genesis more, because we were Nintendo people, but we did have friends who were Nintendo or Genesis fans, so I would get to see it every now and again. But they would get the cool stuff until Nintendo decided they were going to start allowing blood and stuff. They always got the cool shit, and we didn't get to have all that. So I felt like that I got robbed from some of that stuff. Because I'd say at most, the only thing that I could think of in this generation that really freaked me out would have been Kefka from Final Fantasy VI, or 3 if you're only familiar with the Super Nintendo numbering of it. But he was like a psychopath. And I don't think I had really been introduced to this type of psychopath before in any narrative, not in movies or television. Like, this guy was next level. Like, I'm going to just watch the world burn. I could give a fuck. And he doesn't care who he's going to kill in the process or who gets in his way. It doesn't matter. Everybody's going to die. And I'm going to be the one that does it. And it was just like this level of depravity that I have never seen before. So he kind of creeped me out a little bit, It was just a little step too far.
So it's interesting that you say all that, because I had the Genesis instead of the Super Nintendo. And
see?
A lot of the games on Genesis, for looking back, they're kind of edgelordy.
Okay.
Like they went a lot of the games that they went for the the harder rating. It was, look how shocking we can be, but then you go back and you look at it, like there's nothing frightening about Night Trap or Mortal Kombat or Techno Cop.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're bloody, yeah, they're violent, but they're corny as hell. And I had a hard time coming up with someone for this generation, despite the Genesis being like my favorite console of my youth.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up going with Kefka as well.
Okay. See?
So I went with Super Nintendo, where evil doesn't happen, for much the same reason. Not only is he a psychopath, he's an unrepentant, joyful one. Like, he is happy being the agent of chaos and destruction. Like, that's his only reason for existence, and he's happy to fulfill it. And that's terrifying. A villain that it's like the polar opposite of Michael Myers, where Michael Myers is an agent of chaos, but there is nothing behind him. He just lives for death and doesn't think about it. Kefka's like, that's his entire plan. That is everything that matters to him, and he is all too eager to fulfill. And it's terrifying to think that a creature could be like that.
Like, even the scene, I can't remember the name of the castle. It's where Cyan's from. and he just poisons their water supply, and everybody just drops dead. I mean, he doesn't care. He's just like, oh well, back to the drawing board. So be it.
It was Tuesday.
Yeah, it was like, God
Yeah.
damn.
So yeah, all right. So let's move on to the next generation, 5th gen, the PlayStation 1, the Saturn, the N64, the 3DO, if you want to be weird.
I mean, it was there.
It was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you got?
I got one for each of the two that I know I did play, which was PlayStation and N64. And I was really trying to dig deep on these, and I don't feel like I dug deep enough because it was also one of those. It was like, well, what is creepy? What is the right kind of creepiness to this? But I got to at least give Resident Evil for PlayStation a shout out here because it has to be one of the first ones that really got to me. Like really felt a game scare me. And I was like, okay. And I had to put the controller down and be like, all right, whoa, wait a second. And it was just over the dumbest shit because it's a game, but it's what the game is doing to you in the moment. And if I had to give it to that game, I feel like it was the shark section of the game that got to me the most because it just irrationally, I know this shit would not happen, but it's just like, but what if?
Right.
Sharks and you're surrounded by it. What if? And it's like, yeah, but it won't. It's like, but what if? And I can't do it, man. It's like when they get up on me, I'm clenching my asshole and I'm like, move, run. And if they bite me, that's it. And I feel like it's nothing, it's when the fear of falling, you just, you feel it coming. And it's like, you get tipped just a hair over and you just feel your heart drop. It's just like, oh God. Same thing with the sharks, man.
I think with the sharks too, there's also that fear of we're supposed to be the ultimate creature on Earth. We are the higher intelligence. We are the evolved ones. And yet nature can just bitch slap us to death without a blink.
Yeah.
Especially a shark. It's 500 pounds of nothing but teeth and hunger.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the other goes, and the more I think about this, I know there had to be more because I know there's some terrifying shit on the N64 when I really think about it. Shadow Man alone. But I kind of went with the Dead Hand in Majora's Mask because those are some terrifying looking sons of bitches with their gaping mouths and their gnarly hands and arms that just bend over. This is weird shit. And that's in a Zelda game. That's some Nintendo stuff. That shouldn't be in a Nintendo shit. That's in a horror movie. But it's weird as shit. Of course, Majora's Mask is one little move away from being a horror movie. I mean, I feel like it's about as close as
Ashley
it's
would
a Zelda
agree with
horror
you.
movie.
She that is her favorite Zelda game. Yeah. Ash would 100% agree with you on that. It's her favorite Zelda game. I have a feeling that if she were here, something from Majora's Mask would be her pick. My pick goes along with one of yours. It's Resident Evil.
Okay.
It's the first zombie. That first zombie that you come across. He's kneeling over the body, and you walk up to him and he just turns his head and he side eyes you, and there's nothing in those eyes. No life, no compassion, no light, just hunger. And yeah, we've all seen zombies. We've all seen a million zombie movies, zombie TV shows, zombie books, whatever. That was the first time that I can think of in a video game. It has to be the first, at least on a console, where a zombie wasn't something corny, wasn't something cheesy. It looked, as much as a PlayStation 1 could do, like a Romero zombie, like a true human being brought back to life, ready to kill you.
Yeah.
That was like, oh shit. This is a whole new level of horror in video games. Shit just got real.
Mm-hmm. I remember those
So.
times, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Hasn't aged well, but it's
No.
great memories though.
Great memories. That's what counts.
Yep. All right, next generation. We're on to the 6th. PlayStation 2, Dreamcast, Xbox, GameCube.
I would have felt that the PlayStation 2 would have had a great selection, and for some reason I came up dry, and I'm probably forgetting some. But the very first one that came to me when it came to the GameCube was Eternal Darkness, because this was one of my all-time favorite GameCube games ever, and it pisses me off that we will never see this game again in any format, or at least I feel like we will never see this game or a follow-up. I could be wrong. I hope to God I'm wrong, because this was such an amazing game, an amazing concept. The game fucks with you. Could you imagine, with all the sensory stuff we do today, what you could do with this in a VR setting, whether it's the haptic feedbacks on the controllers, whatever it may be? I don't give a damn. But just anything that you could do with this franchise. And oh my God, they did an amazing job in the N64. There was just, I didn't even know where to begin. And even just pointing out one thing, because you could say it's the main character or the main bad guy, Pontius, who would be your fear monger, but just the things it would do. You had a sanity meter that would drop, and if you didn't pay attention to your sanity, the most bizarre shit would happen. I remember, and they got me so good. Got me so good. And it would only work if you had a TV that had this very same thing. But it was, I can't even remember what was happening. My sanity was down, and then my volume started going down, and it was the green bars and the volume bars you could see, and that was the exact TV I had, and that's what they put up on the screen. I was like, who the fuck's turning down my TV? And I started panicking.
That was awesome meta level horror.
Yeah, and I was like, you sons of bitches, what? Just the amount of times that game got me. You know, and there was even another one where it said that it was deleting my game files. I almost shit. Just go like, no, what? Oh, you son of a. So yeah, this is not only just a mean game and terror, but it fucks with you. It's a mean game, but it's such a great game. I love it. That would have been my choice.
And it's a damn good choice. I almost picked it if it weren't for the fact that I couldn't narrow down a character. But the whole atmosphere of that game is absolutely positively batshit insane. And yeah, the idea of what they could do with it now, like you said, either VR or if they could do like social media integration, cell phone integration, something like that to take it out beyond the game. There's so many ways things that they could do to just fuck with the gamer if they really wanted to, but it's too niche probably for that to happen.
Sure.
My pick is painfully obvious, but sometimes obvious isn't wrong. It's obvious because it's too well known to avoid. That would be Pyramid Head from Silent Hill 2.
Okay.
Aside from the creepy Lovecraftian feel of the game in and of itself, the design of Pyramid Head with the extra long, too long to be quite human appendages, the robe that gives off very Cenobite kind of vibes. And then the pyramid head. The fact that his head is a fucking pyramid. I mean, it's kind of pointy, so it's not quite a pyramid, but close enough. He's very reminiscent of, I mean, a lot of people give it credit as being the inspiration for Slender Man. I don't know if that's true, but just visually alone, he's creepy enough as is. But then the idea that he is the manifestation of the main character's guilt over things that he's done in his life, and that it's coming back to haunt him, but in physical form. Like, guilt, everyone has guilt or remorse or something like that gnaws at them about something. So the idea that it could attain corporeal form and haunt you physically, no thanks. No. That's more than terrifying. That's a prescription for taking up alcoholism as a hobby.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. 7th generation. We're on to the PS3, the Xbox 360, and the Wii. What do you have?
Well, the one that really kind of came to mind here, because I was really trying to think of something on the Wii that would have hit a spot here, and the only thing that really came to mind on that would have been something in. I think there was a Silent Hill game, Shattered Memories, that came out, but I could never think of a specific character in that really stuck with me. But then going over the PlayStation, remember The Last of Us came out. Those clickers, I mean, we could go down a whole list of clickers, but I think even just sticking with the main clickers themselves, that shit's kind of terrifying. Just because, I mean, I know you could say that it's a zombie variant of sorts, but there's just something about the noise that they make, how they operate, is something off about it that just makes it a little bit more eerie and creepy. And especially just looking at them, I don't like looking at that shit. That's awful. There's just some things in life, a decayed face is one thing, but then you got mushroom spores and shit. It's nasty. It's funky. I don't want to look at that shit. So I would say the clickers 100% would be one of those things. And I'm sure that one of the variants would be more terrifying, but I'll just stick with them in general. I think they're gross. They're nasty. I don't want to be around them. Stay away from me.
You get no argument from me, man. Those things are, I think, for me, what makes them worse than regular zombies is that the clicking kind of like that's kind of like they're called to each other, they kind of like that binds them together. Zombies don't really do that. They're just mindless eating machines. The clickers have enough intelligence to organize.
Yeah.
Like, they're not long-term strategists, but they have just enough to think, come help me. Ugh.
Yeah. Mm.
So my pick for this generation, I have a pick. It's not from a horror game, but the circumstances of the character are horrific.
Okay.
Captain Martin Walker from Spec Ops: The Line.
Okay, explain.
Okay, so Spec Ops: The Line is a military third-person shooter, and the game comes off at the start as this very generic, like if Call of Duty was played from the third person. Go into a random country, probably, something Arabic or Middle Eastern, kill everyone that's not white, military, go USA, yay, blah, blah, blah. As the game progresses, your main character starts to become more desensitized and more cold and callous. This is Captain Walker. There's a scene where you can order a bombing of white phosphorus to wipe out an enemy troop. White phosphorus is banned by the Geneva Convention. Using it is a legitimate war crime because it is a hell of a way to die. It's like burning powder. And you ordered to do it. Well, as you're walking through the remains of the destruction that you laid, you find out that you killed civilians, women and children and families. And Captain Walker doesn't care. He just goes, well, fuck it. Mission. Forward ho. And at that point, the game actually starts to become self-aware and starts fighting back at you and starts to question you, the gamer, saying, is this what you really want to do? Is the mission more important than humanity? Is what's so great about war? What's so great about killing? Is this who you want to be? Maybe turn off the game and go outside and go do something else. And it almost starts to judge you for wanting to follow this hero's journey and questioning whether it's a hero at all. And by the time you get to the end of the game, you find out that Captain Walker has become so mentally broken by the things that he's done. He thinks that there is a former commanding officer that has been narrating and pulling the strings of his life and setting up all these scenarios to try and kill him. And it turns out he had killed his commanding officer before the start of the game, and he has been masquerading as him and projecting all of the things that he has been deciding onto this dead CO.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So that this game is like this huge meta commentary on war and PTSD, and it's a very psychological, deep game. But he is the villain because he's scary because he doesn't even know that he's doing anything wrong. He is the villain who thinks that he's in the right. And he has built up this belief system that will, through trauma, but still, he's built up this narrative around himself where everything is justified as long as he gets the job done. It's all too human, and it's all too scary.
Sure, yeah.
All right. Let's move away from that deep topic. Way to bring the room down, me. 8th generation, PlayStation 4, the Xbox, not the Series X, the Xbox One.
The one, yeah.
The Wii U and the Switch. I still don't know how those are in the same generation, but that's what Wikipedia says.
Makes no sense to me, but all right. So, yeah, this was probably a generation where we really started getting into these weird, creepy type games. And I'm sure there's a lot that I did not play that others would probably tell us, hey, what about this? This is pretty terrifying. This is scarier than this. I only pulled from what I could remember. One specific, and I can't remember the character's name, but I know fans of the lore would know exactly who the fuck I'm talking about. But the Slender Man game that they did, there was a character midway through. I think you kind of go into a cave or maybe a warehouse or something. I don't remember where the hell you're at, but you're kind of going around. You got your flashlight. You're flipping around looking for somebody. You hear voices, and there would be this. You'd turn, and suddenly you just see the motherfucker running up on you, and be like, and I don't know who the hell. There was a name. I know that my kids were into it when I was playing it, so they could be like, "Oh, that's whoever the fuck that is." I didn't like whoever the fuck that was because they would run up on me when I was trying to play this game, so I didn't care for that. Same with the Resident Evil 7, playing that shit in VR mode and having to deal with that family up close in your face. Nope, not going to do that again. I did that one time. Not going to do that shit again. Because this was at the very beginning at the dinner scene, right? Okay, and then you're having to hide from him, and he's the father of the family, and he's trying to, where are you? Chasing you around the kitchen or whatever. Just talk about anxiety. It's bad enough playing it outside of VR, but being in the kitchen or being no, I don't need that. So that guy's terrifying as shit. And then I'm going to give a quick shout out to the game that never was, PT, because knowing that there's some goddamn thing behind you at all times, I can't. No, nope,
No.
nope, nope.
Yep.
Don't want it. Don't need it.
No.
That shit is terrifying.
If only we could have gotten what that would have been.
I know what could have been. So many what ifs in the world I would love to see followed through.
Fucking Konami.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my pick for this generation is Monica from Doki Doki Literature Club Plus.
Oh, here we go.
A psychotic, obsessed AI in a video game that knows it's a video game and is trying to court you, the player, and starts killing off other characters in an effort to win your affection. Never mind the fact that she starts getting into the game files and fucking with those and making it look like you know, she's deleting registry keys and shit like that. Monica's unhinged, quote unquote, love for the player is just so disturbing and weird. If you haven't played it, and you'd just like to see a taste of it, the show Gravity Falls. It was an animated show on Disney for a couple of years. There's an episode that they do where it's a tribute to it. It's called Seuss and the Real Girl. No, it's Seuss and the Digital Girl, something like that, where he ends up becoming obsessed with a game that has gained sentience and is in love with him, and then starts trying to kill people around him, like his friends and his family, and tries to convert him into the game. Great show and great episode. Full of, you could tell it was written by people who have played Doki Doki, because it is just it captures the essence of that game and the essence of Monica, who is just, there is just something about her, and you almost feel sorry for her, but she's too mad to really have any sympathy.
Mm-hmm.
Close, but not quite. And I won't spoil any of the twists in the game, because if you haven't played it, holy shit.
Yeah.
Buckle up.
Mm-hmm.
Content warnings all over the place.
100%.
Yeah. All right. That brings us to the last generation, the one we're currently in.
I had two that I wanted to talk about, and then one that I just I'm so glad that I get to talk about this, because I was so excited when I found this game or found out about it, but I'm going to save it for last. So the first one I want to bring out, shout out to Resident Evil 8 and that goddamn baby. If you've never played Resident Evil 8 and you don't know about this goddamn baby, Jesus, that will scar you. From, if you don't have children, you probably won't after that. Just leave it at that. Maybe that's good. Parents, buy your kids this Resident Evil 8 game. Play it up to this point and say, here, you play this, and talk about having kids. I also wanted to shout out Death Stranding, because, and I guess that could be also a PlayStation 4 game. I guess I played it on 5. Doesn't matter. when I can't remember what the hell they called them, the death stranding.
Oh. Yeah, I can't think of it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
It's going to
just
bug me.
the blood, the goo. Just the anxiety that came over me the very first time, and probably every time since then, when they start to gather on you and you're getting dragged into it because you're like, no, I can get away from this, and then it's like, no, we're overwhelming you now. That kind of triggers some anxiety in me that I don't really care for. And the last one that I want to talk about, which is perfect for a video game character that to be terrified of, is Amanda the Adventurer. Have you heard of this game?
No.
Oh my God. I can't wait for you to play this game because you're going to want to play this game. And it's think of it like Dora the Explorer, but there's some deep psychological trauma shit happening mixed into this. So you start off, you come to this house and you're in this attic and you just see some stuff sitting around. And then there's a video cassette tape next to a VCR and a TV. Pop in the tape and it's Amanda the Adventurer. And she's like, hey, everybody, I'm Amanda the Adventurer. Nice for you to play with me. And me and my friend, I can't remember the friend's name. I think he's a sheep. And she treats him like shit. I don't want to say much more than that, but you just see how he gets demeaned as the story progresses. But it's this bizarre thing where you start going down this rabbit hole of just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, because the story is telling you a bigger story about something else. It's almost kind of like the Five Nights at Freddy's thing, except this person knew what they wanted to do. Like they had their story. So they're giving you breadcrumbs of who created Amanda the Adventurer and why is it so important? And then you start seeing these news clippings of the creator and then his daughter and then all these other things. You're like, oh, okay. So you start to unravel this mystery, but the videotapes themselves almost have this haunted vibe. So you have to play through the game a few times. And I say that I didn't even feel like when you play through the game a few times for the different endings, I didn't feel like they were that. It didn't feel like a chore. You know how sometimes you got to do that in games and it feels like this didn't feel like a chore because you had a little fast forward button. You could just zip to whatever you needed to go to and change and then move along. So just the vibe, because it's all happy go again. Like I said, the Dora the Explorer kind of vibe. And then when you start to fuck with it, especially when you start getting into the deeper stuff and you're answering things, because she'll do that thing. Hey, what do you think? And you get options. And if you say something she doesn't like, no, that's not right. What about that? No, you know what it is. And then you're just like, I guess it's that. That's not the right answer. Okay, I don't know what the fucking right answer is. It's it's so bizarre, but it's so great. I love it so much. So Amanda the Adventurer, go check that out. Terrifying.
I'm going to have to look this up because the idea of turning Dora the Explorer into a horror setting and then a game. I mean, if you're a parent, you already dread watching Dora the Explorer anyway. So turning it into a horror is like, yep, that fits. That
now it recently fits. I think it was only on Steam and recently came to consoles. And when I saw that, I'd seen the headline and I'd remember, I think Lester had told me about it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to look that up. And I spaced on it. And then when I saw it again, I was like, oh shit, it's going to be on PlayStation. Let me go check. I bought it on the spot because it was like $8 or $9. So, and it's not going to break the bank.
Okay.
Yeah. Very, very
cool. I'll be putting that
affordable
on my wish list.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So my pick for this generation, it started off on the Stadia, actually. It was one of the very few Stadia exclusives, and it only came to the other consoles recently, like earlier this year. And that's Guilt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a survival horror stealth game where you play as a little girl. I'm not entirely sure of the age. I want to say like 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. And you're Sally, and Sally has been taken from her normal town. Like, she takes a cable car down from the mountaintop into the town proper, and by the time she gets down to the town proper, it has become a nightmare world. Everybody's gone. It looks like there's been earthquakes. It looks like there's been fires, and the only living creatures in town, aside from your cousin Emily, who you're trying to rescue, are there's all these different kinds of sentinel guards that you have to avoid because you're 12. You can't combat these things. There's one kind of guard that is this crow-like. It's like it's a humanoid shape, and it's got a crow head, and it'll walk, and then it'll disappear, and then it'll reappear like 8 feet away. And, rather than pacing back and forth, it poofs from place to place. Then there's another type of sentinel guard that kind of looks like it's kind of got a teardrop shaped head a little bit, except the mouth is above the eyes. And that's just wrong. Like, you look at it, you're like, no, that's unholy. That's so wrong. And then there's the third type are these little dolls that kind of look segmented and broken at the joints. And they, we want to play. We see you. Come play with us. They're not particularly original designs, but I think what makes them scary is the atmosphere of the game and the fact that, if you get sucked into the game as you're playing as a little girl, and she's defenseless. Like, you're armed by I'm not quite finished with the game, but so far I have a flashlight and I have a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
That's all you got. You can either shine a light on someone, you can spray them with fire extinguisher, or you can run like hell. That's all you get. So you're defenseless, you're small, and these fuckers are everywhere. And something about that makes these different guards just terrifying because there's nothing you can there's almost nothing you can do to stop them. So they're not scary. The design around it is what makes them scary, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's worth it. I'm glad it got freed from the Stadia graveyard. Like, I can see why they market it as, hey, look, this is one of our exclusives. It's not a killer app. I will give it that. It is not by any means the type of thing that you buy a console for, but what was it, like $14.99, something like that, $12.99?
Something like that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's real fun. It's been fun so far. It's great game to spend 6-8 hours on.
Yeah,
Highly recommend it. Glad to, yeah.
It was one that I was really worried was going to get lost when Stadia went under, because I think I even advocated about it on Super Mega Crash Brothers Turbo because we had talked about, I think, Stadia and Luna at the same time, and which service actually seemed like the safer option or the better value. And in all fairness, I think I said Luna seemed like the better option because there was a safety net to it, it just because you were paying into it didn't feel like you were losing anything. It was, what happened?
I don't know. You went black for a moment and your sound cut out.
Oh,
but you're back now.
Okay. In any case, no, it seemed like it would be the better option to go with, because I was testing them side by side, and it was just like, I'm already paying for Amazon. They're kind of giving me freebies already. So if I wanted to play them, they're there. And then if I wanted to play or pay $7-8 a month for a few extra games, sure. And I don't have to pay for anything but a controller. And even that, I don't have to pay for if I don't want to. So it just seemed like the safer option versus Stadia, where they're just like, hey,
Yeah.
We've got a Chrome. You got a Chromecast? It's like, no, I don't. It's like, well, what about this controller? You got this? I don't have that. Well, how about this? $100 worth of material. We'll give it to you for free if you'll just play our Stadia. Okay. I seriously got all my shit for free just because they wanted me to play the Stadia. And I did. And Guilt, like I played Guilt, and I honestly sit there and said, this is a great game, but it'll be a shame if it gets lost here and dies here, because this is not going to last. So yeah, I bought Guilt the day it came over to PlayStation, just to show my support, because I was so happy. So I'm glad.
Yep. I did too. I think within a week of it dropping, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm grabbing that. Thank you. Because I remember when Stadia died, they said at this time we have no plans to port it. And I had the reaction of, what the fuck? Why? Why would you not want to port it to everything else? Make money. Yeah. You certainly didn't make money on Stadia. Make money. Get your investment back. So.
Exactly. I really hope they saw that. I really hope there was at least a big influx of purchases for that game, because that was so wrong to do them like that. It should have been like a timed exclusive, if anything, not a lockdown exclusive, especially on a platform that you did not know was a guarantee of anything. And you're going to lock down one fucking game. Idiots.
Fucking Google.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that is our show. Stephen, I want to thank you for appearing on the show, being the sudden surprise guest co-host today, bailing me out. Do appreciate it. Where can people find you, your shows, anything you want to give a promotion to?
Well, you can find us all on the internets, the interwebs, Super Mega Crash, and Horror Ramblings for all the podcast stuff. Well, we're all over the social media platforms. Super Mega Crash Beyond, new episodes drop every Monday, and new episodes of Horror Ramblings come out every Friday. We used to do Inspired by Weeaboo was another show that I used to do with my wife, but we kind of put that on hold because things were getting a little tight with time and whatnot. So she's been bouncing around to other projects and whatnot. So we kind of put that on hold. But we got other stuff coming up. Keep your eyes open. Just check the social medias or go to pencilpaperproductions.com if you want to keep up with all things we got going on over there.
And it's great stuff. I wouldn't have them on the show if I wasn't a subscriber myself. So I advocate, go listen. And if you ever do a Phantasm themed episode of Horror Ramblings and you don't have me on, you will break my heart. Just throwing it out there. If you want to follow us on social media, it's First Gen Gamers Pod on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. You can follow me at Streets of Jed on Blue Sky and on Discord. I would plug Ashley. Oh, Ashley's other podcast, F That, is available on all your podcast platforms if you love true crime. So go listen to her and give her some support as well. That's our show. Thank you for listening, everyone. Again, thank you, Stephen, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And we will see you next time.